Hello again. So it's been a couple of weeks now since I've modified the Cross Trainer to work with the ZWIFT app, and I'm pleased to report everything is working as expected, no issues whatsoever, except for this one niggly thing, which is the display on my Cross Trainer simply shows the RPM. It gives you no indication whatsoever of what speed you're doing. I expect there's many reasons for this, but I would really like to be able to correlate the speed on the Cross Trainer with the ZWIFT app, just to give me an idea of the sort of pace that I'm actually pedaling at. So I've worked out a couple of ways of doing this, and if your Cross Trainer also displays in a similar way, or if you don't know what your display is actually referring to, I've hopefully got a solution for you to calibrate how fast you are actually pedaling on your Cross Trainer. And after that, we're going to look at how we can convert the RPM rate to miles per hour. So stick around, hopefully you'll find this useful. So if the computer on your Cross Trainer can display speed in either kph or MPH, feel free to skip this section. Or if you're just interested in getting your avatar moving on ZWIFT and aren't particularly interested in accuracy, again feel free to skip this. But my aim is to try to stay within a few MPH of actual gameplay, as I think this is definitely going to enhance the overall game experience of using a Cross Trainer on ZWIFT. If, like me, your Cross Trainer displays in RPM, all is not lost, although displaying in RPM is pretty darn useless in telling you how fast you're going. But if you've got your manual, have a look, because in my case, I'll just scroll down to the speed section over here. Okay, so you can see speed is displayed in RPM, but there's a note here which says 400 revolutions is approximately 1 mile. Therefore, if you are pedaling at 50 RPM, you will travel approximately 1 mile in 8 minutes. Now, this is a very useful piece of information when it comes to comparing my Cross Trainer speed with the ZWIFT speed, and it's definitely going to be the baseline that I'll be using to help calibrate the two as closely as possible. So armed with that info, I took a few measurements to make sure my Cross Trainer was reading accurately. I got my son Noah to hold 60 to 70 RPM and took a reading of the wheel using a tachometer, and as you can see, the two readings were pretty much spot on. So perhaps you don't want to go down the tachometer route, but you do have a mobile phone that's capable of recording in slow motion. Well, this is an alternative method of working out your RPM. Basically what you do is you record a 1 minute section of video. I don't know if you can see those digits, but that's 1 minute. And I have recorded in a quarter speed, and then what I do is I drag that 1 minute section of video across, and you'll see that it then converts to 4 minutes worth of video. Hopefully you can see that. And what this allows you to do is to count the number of rotations. You can use a bit of tape or whatever you've got handy on the flywheel, and this allows you to count the number of rotations in that 1 minute section of video, and that will give you your RPM. So what I've done in this particular instance is I've used 2 strips of tape, and this allowed me to just count the number of rotations in a 30-second section of video and just simply double it to work out the RPM. So I hope you found that section useful, but before we go on to converting the RPM into MPH, just a quick word on the different types of tachometer. So I would definitely avoid using something like this. These are primarily designed for model makers for measuring the speed of their props. You've got the added complication of making sure that you insert the correct number of props, and as well as that, I just didn't find it accurate for this type of project. Stick with something like this. This is your laser type, which hopefully you can see that there. Comes with reflective tape, and yeah, definitely in terms of accuracy for this project, yeah, it was spot on, so that's the one I would go for. So moving on to the conversion, so I've just extracted this portion from my manual. So if we accept that 400 revolutions is approximately 1 mile, therefore at 50 RPM we're going to be travelling 1 mile in 8 minutes, and I think this would probably work for most cross trainers. To convert that into MPH, very simple conversion. Because there are 60 minutes in an hour, we divide 60 by the 8 minutes, gives us 7.5, and that's how fast we will be travelling at 50 MPH. So let me just make a note of that. Sorry, at 50 RPM. So at 50 RPM, that's equal to 7.5 MPH. So that's the speed for 50 RPM, but realistically we're more likely to do in the region of 70 RPM. So let's work out what 70 RPM is in MPH. So just going back to the extract from my manual, the way they worked out the 8 minutes was they simply divided the 50 RPM by the 400. So in this instance we are going to divide 400 divided by 70, and this time we get 5.7. hopefully, yeah, you can see that, but we need, that's in decimal, so we need to convert the 0.7 into minutes, and the way we do that is simply times 0.7 by 60, which gives us 42. So that will make 5.42 minutes. Let's make a note of that. 5.42 minutes. So now what we have to do, just like we did for the 50 RPM, is divide the 60 by 5.42. Let's get the calculator back up. So that's 60 divided by 5.42 equals approximately 11 miles per hour. So at 70 RPM you will be travelling, whoops, okay, so I'm back, my whiteboard just crashed me. Yeah, so hopefully that's given you an overview of how to convert your RPM into MPH in your cross trainer. Just one last thing to finish up on. Again, I think it's a useful exercise, so what I'm going to do is just, hopefully, yeah, that's in shot. Just going to try to draw a graph as neatly as I can. So on this graph you could plot some of these figures. So we start off at 50, I'm going to go up to 100. This is RPM on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we're going to have MPH, and again we'll go to a max here of 20, and we'll call this 10, and let's just put some arbitrary figures in here. Let's go 60, 70, whoa, that went a bit wonky, 70, 80 and 90. Okay, so we know that at 50 RPM we achieved roughly 7.5, about there, and at 70 we achieved 11, which would be roughly there, and if 50 we achieved 7.5, 100 would equate to 15, which I'm going to say is roughly there. And then if we join that line up, it's a linear line, you can work out all the in-between figures. So something like that I think might be useful if you really wanted to get some granularity in your RPM speed compared to MPH. But yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in. Hopefully you found this useful. Apologies for the graphics. I'm using an Xbox 360 tablet, about 15 years old. I'll have to invest in something new. But yeah, hopefully it gave you an idea. Anyway, until the next time, by all means, you know, if you've got any questions or you want to comment, please do so. But until the next time, be safe.